Okay. So the future trend, another trend is wireless battery charging. As I said, wireless battery charging. Why wireless battery charging? Because it is much more convenient. It is much more flexible, I would say. You do not have to have a proper connector. Let's say I have a Tesla and somebody has a Nissan Leaf or some other car, then Tesla will design its own connector, own system, right? Nissan Leaf will design its own connector. Let's say I'm traveling somewhere and I have some parking lot has a different charge port. So what will happen? My charge terminal will not meet there. Nissan Leaf's terminal may not meet there. Then we will not be able to charge our cars. So in this case, what we do is that the best thing is to have an wireless charging where you do not have any connector. Now we see in global, there are like hundred thousands of electric vehicle manufacturers, and it is very difficult to standardize the connectors like CHAdeMO and other. There are a lot of things, but it is very difficult to have same specification globally. But if we go for wireless battery charging, where we do not require a connector, you just park your car and by virtue of simple magnetics, you charge your battery. So that's why it is getting popularity and very much nowadays. So the architecture is simple, converts from AC to DC, then DC to DC. This is basically a boost stage. And then again, DC to high frequency AC, high frequency DC, sometimes we do, sometimes we not. I mean, basically in high frequency AC. Then there are some capacitor compensation we put because there might be some drop in voltage. So for that, we have some capacitor compensation. And then to the magnetic coil, it's basically a transformer with an air gap. Then we transfer it over here. So as I say, most of the work is going on in reducing these three stages and trying to make directly from a 60 Hertz AC or 50 Hertz AC to high frequency AC and give this transformer. So, and typically that is done with a new class of converters, which is called as matrix converter. I'm not sure whether many of you would have ever heard of this term, but there is something called matrix converter, which is a bidirectional 4-quadrant converter. It can block forward voltage, it can block reverse voltage, it can conduct forward direction, it can conduct reverse direction. So it's a 4-quadrant operation. If we take a MOSFET, it's just a single quadrant operation, but here we have 4-quadrant operation. MOSFET will only block positive voltage and it will allow the current either in positive or negative direction. So basically quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. So 2 quadrant, but this kind of converters will let us operate in 4 quadrant. So that's why we achieve this, this power transfer within one stage. Okay. So what are some other aspects in thing is that motor drive technology. Motor drive technology, why it is important? Because if you see in plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, we have a big IC engine over here. And then we have the power converters here, right? It takes a lot of space. So to reduce that space, there has been some advancement recently done by Nissan Leaf, where they mount their converter on top of the motor. So everything becomes very, very compact. So here you see, this is how they have mounted it. They have a motor and they mount the inverter on top of it and power delivery module on top of it. The power delivery module includes the boost DC-DC stage and junction box and integrates charger. So this integration is a very big thing now. So that everything becomes very compact, very lightweight, so that it's very easy to design and much more reliable, I would say. So the specifications are like it's at 80 kilowatt synchronous motor drive with a torque of 280 Newton meter. And these are some of the specs, I would say. So see, the plug-in charging is from 240 volt AC to 480 volt DC. So typically we maintain a DC bus of 400 to 480 volt. And the inverter requires 600 volt. So we have a DC-DC boost stage. So here somebody might ask a question that why do not you directly generate 600 volt DC and run the inverter? Why you need 480 volt? So here is the thing. You see here, we have the batteries lying on this car, right? So there are a lot of safety concerns. Higher voltage means higher insulation requirement, right? So if I go for 600 volt batteries, I will require many batteries because the battery rating is limited. So I have to go like series parallel connection and all this. So we need lot of batteries and we need much more space, and the insulation is an issue. So to address this, for reliability purpose and for economical purpose and everything, we tend to limit this voltage to either 400 to 500, in that range, not more than that. It's okay to have another additional DC-DC stage, but it's typically limited in that range by almost every manufacturer. Okay, but this is one of the advancement going on right now. Similarly, this is another architecture. Here you see all the DC-AC power inverter, everything has been mounted on top of the engine, so that you will not have, much more, I would say, efficient design, power density is high and not a very big weight. So this is from SEBI. So you see they have a 150 kilowatt motor, and they also operate at like 480 volt DC. So this is kind of a standard from power electronics point of view, it's standard. And you see the battery modules, 288 modules. See, 288 lithium ion battery pack is here. So if you go on increasing that to go for 600 volt, it will be too much. And the reliability is an issue, because in an electrical vehicle, basically your battery is under your seat, right? You are sitting on the battery. So it's not that, from safety concern point of view also, it's not good to have so many batteries in your vehicle. So there are a lot of safety standards we have to meet. So for that purpose, we limit these voltages. There are some future trends. What are the future trends in motor drive technology, which is General Motors is trying to make? They are making induction motor for Spark EV and PMSM motor as well. So PMSM motor, like permanent magnet synchronous motor, they are gaining much more attention now. Induction motor has been there for a very long time, and it is still there, and it is reliable, and it has no bigger drawbacks. But PMSM motors are much more efficient. They give better flexibility, so better torque control, easy torque control, I would say. So that's why we are slowly moving towards PMSM motor or brushless DC motor, and GM is actively working on this, right? And there is one more point which I must cover here, is that this has not come up in industry yet, but in academics, in research, people are also working on integrating the battery charger into the inverter as well, so that you do not want this intermediate DC-DC stage. You directly integrate your power inverter and the EV battery charger. So it's a much more complicated design, but still people are working on that from power electronics front. If you see, many IEEE publications recently have focused on those areas. Okay. So these are some of those, I would say, some of the areas where industry and academia are working on from power electronics front. Okay. So let's see the future generation EVs. The future generation EVs is like we are moving towards autonomous vehicle. And there are many companies who work on autonomous vehicle. You can see over here the details of those companies. Let's see why autonomous vehicle. Autonomous vehicles are because There are many reasons, but prime reason is that convenience. People tend to have newer technology nowadays and they don't want to do much work. That's the basic funda, right? We need a much more efficient phone. We need a much more efficient laptop or any gadget because we want to do work smart. So that's why autonomous vehicle. We want the vehicle to do things on its own. We don't want to control it. Second thing is that the safety, the road safety, uh, to reduce the fatalities, to reduce the accidents, and better maneuver. So these are some of the things which autonomous vehicle is like self-driving vehicles is now targeting. Though it has not been commercially available or it has not been in regular way, but still people are working and many companies are focusing their research and development on that. Uber is one of that. Driverless Uber cars. They actually started this thing in California a couple of years back. So they have a lot of sensors. All the cars is full with sensors, which detects the road condition, which detects the anybody is crossing the road or there is a traffic light or anything. They have a GPS system which completely maps the entire area, the vicinity, and accordingly, depending on the logic, it maneuvers and it operates. So this is how a very broad level, I would say, like idea I would like to give. I don't want to go much deeper into this in this presentation. And some of the next generation EVs are like flying cars, right? Right now, the flying cars or drones, everything are very much limited to military applications. And some small scale drones which have been used by public, that is very small scale that we will not consider that. That's not much of an power electronics point of view, it's not that big. But electric vehicle flying cars is an upcoming trend. And in US, there has been a lot of interest in this. Mostly Tesla is going to invest very soon in this field. And people are still started working on this in a prototype level. So if we see like on power distribution architecture of an flying cars, so it is quite similar to an electric vehicle. Other than that, the only difference is that it starts with a turbo generator, which generates the AC, and we have an AC to DC converter, and that is basically a rectifier. It goes to an onboard charger, and we have a battery bank, and again a DC-DC converter. We have a central control unit, and here we drive, instead of motor, we drive the propellers, right? We have propellers here, depending on how many propellers we want. And we have the entire control system and small power units like 12 volt supply, 48 volt supply for cameras, LEDs, and LIDAR. These are laser technologies, and our IPUs, display, all these are the ancillary thing. But most of the thing comes over here, and they are quite similar to one EV, traditional electrical vehicle architecture. But the thing is that now we are not on the road, right? We are in sky and flying. So we want our converters and everything to be lightweight. We cannot take like tons and tons of weight to the air and fly, right? It's not fuel efficient. So we need much more high power density converters and everything. So in power electronic front, that is a very big challenge, and people are working on that. Many industries have started their research and development in this, and academia is also helping in this regard. And academia is also working on how to develop this high efficient and high power density converters. So this is an ongoing process, and people are working on this. Okay, you can find in IEEE many recent publications related to this, very recently. Okay, having said that, I think we covered like on a very briefly and a very top level what are the power electronics importance in electric vehicle, and how industry is addressing it, how academia is addressing it, and what are the future prospects. Having said that and having this knowledge, we should also see what are the career prospects, how you want to do and what you want to do, and what are the job profile and how to achieve those, right? So if we see, there are two aspects. One is the hardware aspect, another is the software aspects. The hardware aspects is like the power converter development, the battery management, power converter packaging, how to package those power converters so that they are thermally much more stable. That is a separate section on this, right? And the reliability, it's a very big issue. You cannot have an unreliable system, because if your car can catch fire, if your converter fails, that's as simple as that. So how to design the reliability. So in all these fields, you can have some positions open. If you see any electric company like Tesla or any big companies, you name it, you will have these positions, and they need the specialization in this field. A converter development engineer should have specialization in power converter design, operation, and everything. Battery management engineer will have outlook on battery management, especially on how to configure the batteries, how to operate the batteries. Similarly, packaging reliability engineers positions you will find. And in software front, it's also another big domain, motor control, right? How you control your motor, how accurately you control your motor so that it can drive smoothly, it can take smooth turn, it can take a very fast turn, and it has to be controlled in that way. So it's a very big area and very booming area, motor control engineer. And real-time digital simulator. You see, this has been a trend now, and I would suggest people to focus on this more, because what a real-time digital simulator does is that it simulates the entire system before we move towards hardware design. So we want to emulate and simulate the system. We do not want to build the entire hardware and test it and see that, oh, this idea failed. No, we want to simulate the entire system beforehand, and then we go for hardware building, so that we reduce the time, we reduce the work requirement and the manpower, money, everything. So there has been a lot of real-time digital simulator available nowadays, like OpelRT. You might have heard about OpelRT, RTDS, Plex. Even I guess MATLAB is coming up with this real-time digital simulator. So these are some things you can look into in this field. And there will be like system model engineer, how you model the entire system, control and test engineer. So these are some of the fields which you can focus on to. And like traditional thing like motor design, right? PMSM is not the end of the world, or BLDC is not end of the world, right? So we keep on evolving. The motor which provide us much smaller size and functionalities like torque production and everything. So there are a lot of these positions which you can look into. Okay. So career trips, how you achieve this. To achieve this, I would say like it's not sufficient to just to have theoretical knowledge, because we do not cover all these things in theory. It needs some skill-based courses, and it needs some practical training and some practical insight into what is happening in the industry and how people are addressing it. Okay. So you go for some vocational training, you take some hands-on hardware simulation and hardware trainings, right? You attend online industry webinars, meet with industry people and discuss. So these are some of the things which you should know, but more or less you have to have some practical oriented training, some skill set oriented training. And how to create a network, contact with industry professionals, whoever is working on EV field, and link through job portals like LinkedIn or Glassdoor or something else. There are many portals, you join through that. Attend IEEE student programs, like every section. In India also, there will be a lot of sections like Hyderabad section or Chennai section, or there are many sections available. So you join there, many international professionals and industry professionals, some great people in India also, they present their work, they give talk on what is happening, how industry is addressing this, what is the contribution of academia into this. So that is how you gain a very big idea, and right. So that is how mostly you can get the good flavor of this field. So this is where I would like to conclude my presentation. I really appreciate your patience.